My name is Max, and I used to live in a house near the forest. It was a big, old house with creaky floors and drafty windows. My parents bought it because it was cheap, but I always thought there was something off about it. This is the story of the nights that changed everything. It started a few weeks after we moved in. Every night, just after midnight, I would hear it. The sound of footsteps, slow and heavy, moving through the house. At first, I thought it was just the house settling, or maybe my parents walking around. But then, I realized the footsteps were too deliberate, too steady. One night, I decided to investigate. I waited until I heard the footsteps again, then quietly got out of bed. I tiptoed to my bedroom door and slowly opened it. The hallway was dark, but I could see the faint outline of something moving. I held my breath and listened. The footsteps were coming closer. I pressed myself against the wall, trying to stay out of sight. The figure passed by my door, and I got a good look at it. It was tall and thin, with long, stringy hair and a tattered dress. Its face was pale and gaunt, with hollow eyes that seemed to stare right through me. I wanted to scream, but I knew I had to stay quiet. "Don't make noise," I told myself. I waited until the figure disappeared down the hallway, then quickly closed my door and locked it. I sat on my bed, shaking, trying to make sense of what I had seen. The next morning, I told my parents about the figure. They brushed it off, saying it was just my imagination. But I knew what I had seen. I knew there was something in the house. The nights that followed were even worse. The footsteps became louder, and the figure started coming closer to my room. I could hear it breathing, a low, raspy sound that sent chills down my spine. I started sleeping with my door locked and a chair pushed against it, but I still didn't feel safe. One night, I woke up to the sound of my door creaking open. I had forgotten to lock it. I lay there, frozen with fear, as the figure stepped into my room. It stood at the foot of my bed, staring at me with those hollow eyes. "Don't make noise," it whispered, its voice dry and crackling. "Don't make noise." I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to will it away. I felt its cold breath on my face, its bony fingers brushing against my cheek. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure was gone. I opened my eyes and saw that my door was closed again, the room silent. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, I decided I had to find out more about the house. I went to the library and looked up its history. What I found out made my blood run cold. Years ago, a woman had lived in the house. She was said to be mad, always talking to herself and wandering the halls at night. One night, she vanished without a trace. Some said she had run off into the forest, while others believed she was still in the house, haunting it. I knew then that the figure I had seen was the woman. She was still there, walking the halls every night, looking for something or someone. That night, I decided to confront her. I waited until I heard the footsteps, then quietly got out of bed. I stood in the hallway, my heart pounding, and called out, "What do you want?" The footsteps stopped, and the figure appeared at the end of the hallway. It started moving towards me, its eyes locked on mine. I stood my ground, trying to stay calm. "Don't make noise," it whispered, reaching out a hand towards me. "Why are you here?" I asked, my voice shaking. The figure stopped, its eyes narrowing. "Don't make noise," it repeated, its voice more insistent. I took a step back, fear gripping me. "What do you want?" I asked again. The figure suddenly lunged at me, its hands outstretched. I turned and ran, my heart racing. I could hear it behind me, its footsteps echoing in the hallway. I ran into my room and slammed the door shut, pushing the chair against it. I could hear the figure scratching at the door, trying to get in. "Don't make noise," it whispered through the door. "Don't make noise." I sat on my bed, trembling as the scratching continued. Eventually it stopped, and the house fell silent. I didn't sleep that night, or the night after. One night, the scratching was louder, more urgent. I could hear the figure's voice, clearer and more menacing. "Max," it hissed. "I know you're in there. Let me in." My heart pounded in my chest. How did it know my name? I backed away from the door, my hands shaking. The figure pounded on the door, the wood splintering under the force. "Max, let me in," it repeated, its voice echoing in my ears. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, my hands trembling. But the call wouldn't go through. The screen flickered, the battery draining rapidly. In seconds, it was dead. Desperate, I looked around for something, anything to defend myself with. I grabbed a metal lamp, gripping it tightly. The door burst open, the figure standing in the doorway, its eyes fixed on me. "Don't make noise," it whispered, stepping closer. "Don't make noise." I swung the lamp, but it passed right through the figure. It reached out, its cold hand wrapping around my wrist. I felt a jolt of pain, like ice burning through my skin. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. The figure's grip tightened, pulling me closer. "Don't make noise," it repeated, its voice filling my head. "Don't make noise." I struggled, my vision blurring. The room started to spin, darkness closing in around me. I felt myself slipping away, the figure's voice the last thing I heard. "Don't make noise," it whispered. "Don't make noise." I woke up in the hospital, my parents by my side. They told me I'd been found unconscious in my room, the door broken down. They had no idea what had happened, and I didn't tell them. I couldn't. We moved out of the house the next day. I never went back, and I never will. But sometimes, in the dead of night, I can still hear it. The footsteps, slow and heavy, moving through the house. The whispering voice, cold and insistent. "Don't make noise," it says. "Don't make noise." So if you ever find yourself in an old house near the forest, be careful. And if you hear footsteps in the middle of the night, don't make noise. You never know who or what might be listening.